you ready to master the waves of medical device product development? Well, wax up your surfboard because you are listening to Inspired by Imua. And here is your medical device product development expert, that Hawaiian-hearted hostess who will help you hang 10, Meghan Alonso.
And aloha! You're listening to Inspired by Imua, where we help you master the waves of medical product development. Each week, we interview guests that educate, guide, and inspire to give you and your product the skills you need to hang 10. If this is your first time listening, Imua is spelled I-M-U-A, and it's a Hawaiian word. It means to advance forward with passion despite rough waves. There are plenty of those in medical product development, so keep listening because we've got you covered. Now, I am coming at you today from a brand new location. I'm actually in the basement of our new place in Reston, Virginia. And one thing that I learned here out on the East Coast, or I guess Virginia is technically the South, but so I grew up going to my grandmother's house in Oklahoma where a basement was completely underground, and that's what a basement was. But out here, a basement is, I'm in the basement and I'm looking out the patio door to my backyard. So essentially, most of the houses and townhouses are built on a slope so that when you walk in the front door, you're on the ground level, but then you have to go down the stairs to get out the back of your house. So it's not like a dungeon type feeling in the basement. It's actually very nice. And I like it. I originally set up my space upstairs in one of our extra bedrooms, but then I just wanted to be down here. It's really sunny it's sunny in here when the sun's out. But right now my dog Abby is outside and she's hanging out, and I can keep an eye on her, and it's just a nicer view. So I'm broadcasting from here. Let me know how it sounds, if it sounds kind of crazy. I have some furniture in here and I put down a rug just so it's not so echoey because it is a pretty big space. And I've been in the process of moving. We're still not entirely settled and organized. So I kind of feel that way. I just feel disorganized. But I do have a lot of exciting things going on. So if you've been listening a while, you've probably heard me talk about my virtual accelerator program called Invention Idea to Profitable Product. Well, I just relaunched that. So it's officially open now. I don't have it up on my website yet, but hopefully I will by the time this airs, just to announce that and to invite people that, hey, if you want to sign up, you can do that. And I'll make it available as get that going. And if you want to learn more about it, you can visit, it's imua-services.com/IIPP. And that's imua-services.com/IIPP. Or if you're on the go and it's easier, you can just text the word invention to the number 44222, and that'll give you some information as well. So I wanted to talk to you today. My little speech today is inspired by something I heard. And recently I was listening to NPR's All Things Considered, and it was a really neat segment they did. Richard Harris did this piece, and it's titled Advice from Patients on a Study's Design Makes for Better Science. So the synopsis of this is that a lot of times study designs, and this one was for a drug in particular, but it definitely carries over to what you guys are all working on with your products out there. And you want to think about the patients that are going through the studies. And this was probably mid-year last year. A client was gearing up for a study and they just wanted it to all be volunteer and not pay the subjects anything. And the study coordinator said, no, you can't do that. You're not going to get any people to participate in your studies. And why the company was thinking about how can I save money? How can I save money? They obviously were not thinking about how can I get the best patient experience out of this? And how can I get patients that even want to participate? So that's got to be in your mind the user experience is one of the top things that we need to be thinking about in every particular thing that we do. And that comes down to studies as well. So in this particular case, the study that was taking place is around a cancer drug. And a lot of times with cancer drugs, it's hard to get these patients to sign up. It's hard to get studies completed. And then because of that, medical innovation is just slowed. This one in particular was so popular that they had to put on the brakes. And I will link to this so you can hear this piece for yourself if you haven't already heard it. But this one was called the NCI MATCH trial. And instead of treating organs that cancers are attacking, so instead of saying this is a brain cancer drug or this is a lung cancer drug or pancreatic cancer drug, it looks at the mutations of those cancers and it's treating it that way. And these patients that have been on the drug have reported no side effects, which is just that. I mean, that's absolutely amazing considering chemotherapy horror stories. And it is. I mean, I've been on chemo and it's just nasty stuff. So yeah, I'm imagining lots of patients would jump at the chance to go through a trial with no side effects. But of course, they're very concerned with their quality of life and just the life that they have left. And they had 800 patients enroll and they were just expecting 150. So why did they have so much success? And yeah, I hinted at, okay, well, why wouldn't you want to do it? Because it is a great drug if it doesn't have that many side effects. But the study was designed with the patients in mind. So what would appeal to participants? What would appeal to incentivize people to, number one, sign up for the study, and number two, be able to complete the study and just be excited about completing the study. So a woman by the name of Nancy Roach headed this up. Nancy has an interesting story. Her dad was in advertising and he was the man behind the scrubbing bubbles. If you guys remember those, I think it was Dow that had the scrubbing bubbles and they just kind of coined that. So his job was to create products that consumers wanted, or not necessarily to create products that consumers wanted, but just to create excitement so that those consumers wanted the products that were already in existence. So you know that going into this, the original study design for this cancer therapy, the original one would have split patients into two groups. So one of them would get the drug the entire time. The second one would be off the medication for a certain amount of time in what they coined the term as drug holiday. And they were doing this. It's not just to be able to see if the treatment was working, but they wanted to see, okay, is this tumor just growing slowly or is it actually responding to the treatment? And then how do they use that information, which is, that's really good information to know. And it makes sense for them to want to build that into the study. But which patients would want to do that? If the drug was working, they're going to want to continue to take the drug. They don't want a holiday from the drug. And Nancy stepped in and she said, hey, wait a second. People aren't going to like this. If the drug is working, they feel great, they're responding, they're going to want the drug. And why are we doing it this way? So what she suggested is say, okay, why don't you do a follow-up study? Why don't we test this first, see what the progress was so far, and then we'll do another study to actually test if that tumor in particular was growing slowly or if it just was not responding or was responding, whatever the case was. So that's pretty cool. And she goes into her particular story about how, she's not a doctor, she's not a clinician, she's not in clinical research, but she knows the human factors, just the more, it's not necessarily human factors or usability, but in a way it is. Like you're really in tune with what patients want. Patient advocacy, there we go. That's a better term for it. That's what Nancy is doing. And her story is that she watched her mom go through something similar like this. And back a while ago, I've really felt this way. And me personally, now I'm in my mid 30s, and my parents' generation is more of the generation that whatever the doctor says, that's what you should do. And granted, my grandfather was a doctor. My uncle's a doctor. I do have lots of doctors in my family, but that's just what it was for their generation, is that the doctor's word was sacred and that was it. And in my generation and the younger millennial generation, I feel like, and I know I just talked about this on the previous podcast episode, or actually 2 episodes ago, that millennials, people can't really, there's a school of thought on what exactly is a millennial. But anyway, so the newer generations, Gen X, Gen Y, and then the millennial generation, they're a lot more in control of their health information. They're always questioning. We are the generation that as soon as we get symptoms, we don't call a doctor and ask what it is. We ask Google what it is, and we look it up on the internet, and we want to find answers for ourselves. We have to be our own patient advocates, because it's just the way it is. When a physician is seeing 30, 40, 50 patients a day, there's going to be errors, and you have to be involved. So anyway, these patient advocacy groups have really stepped up, and they're pushing the clinical trial designs to have the patient in mind. So a good quote from Nancy that I wrote down is, "Will the results of this study actually help anybody?" So, and I know exactly what you're thinking. Well, of course it helps people. I'm designing my product. And yes, that is correct. But the structure of the particular study, how are you incentivizing people? How are you getting them to sign up? And this is a side note, but I actually heard, and I called, and this person did not do their fact checking. So I was listening to the radio here the other day, and they were talking about a new NIH study in Bethesda where they're actually testing a vaccine against mosquito bites. So that's pretty cool stuff. And the radio DJs were making fun of it because they were saying, "Oh, do we go into a room naked and are bitten by mosquitoes?" And that's totally not the case at all. I actually called because I was just interested in it, and no, it's on the arm and the mosquitoes are in a tube. But just the patient perception of this, when they hear about your study and they just have an image in their minds of what's going to happen. Like this guy on the radio was talking about, oh, well, okay, it's obvious that I'm going to be naked in a room. And that's totally not the case. But how are you going to portray your product? And how are you going to treat your patients from the moment that they walk in the door? And well, first of all, how are they going to find the study location and who's going to greet them? How are they paid or, compensated? Maybe they're not necessarily paid, but if it's a gift card or whatever they're getting, and are you getting quality patients? How are you attracting a diverse patient population if that's what you need? So a lot of this, you really need to be thinking about. Your CRO can help you. And I highly encourage you to talk with someone like Nancy, or maybe the CRO that you're working with has that background, that they're really in tune with what the patients want and need and what's going to be the best for your particular study, so that you get great outcomes of that study and actually get your product moving forward through the FDA or whatever regulatory body you're working with. Because so here's the devil's advocate on this. So imagine you are like the client that I mentioned before that thinks, oh, well, of course, people are just going to volunteer for this study and we're not going to pay them. Okay, so you attract a few patients for your study, and then you're not really attracting who you want to attract, or you don't have the demographics that are needed, and you submit your data to the FDA and they're like, no, nice try, but no, go do this again. It's just better to just do it right the first time. Set things up the way they need to be set up. Do all that forethought, that planning in advance, so you can just excel later on. So wanted to leave that little tidbit for you. Again, I will have this article linked in the show notes, and you can get the show notes by going to my website. And it's easy. You can either go to inspiredbyimua.com, which is the name of the podcast, or you can go to Imua-services.com. Both ways will get you to the podcast. So again, this piece is called Advice from Patients on a Study's Design Makes for Better Science. It was written by Richard Harris on the podcast, All Things Considered by NPR. So you'll see my little synopsis of it. You'll see the link to go check this out for yourself. And I hope you are having a great Tuesday. And again, also on my website is the information for my brand new virtual accelerator program called Invention Idea to Profitable Product. And I will catch you next week. Imua.
Mahalo for joining us. If you're new to riding the waves of medical device product development, or if you've been in development for a while already, Inspired by Imua is here to surf with you. Want to be a master of the waves? Text HANG10, that's HANGTEN, to 44222. We'll send you the most common wipeouts companies make in product development so you can avoid them and reach master wave status. Again, that's HANG10 to 44222. We publish a new episode every Tuesday, so catch us at inspiredbyimua.com. Imua!